Shirley here with Jupitalis, and lo and behold, Mercury retrograde is bringing my face back. So Mercury is not retrograde yet. This is Venus hour, Venus day, and I have to do a video because my screen caption has been dysfunctioning, which means that I need to show my pretty face, um, or a black screen. Usually people click on videos with faces. Anyway, as I look at the current planets, Lilith has ingress to the degree she will be during the Uranus ingress, which is 11 degrees Scorpio. Um, yeah, and Mercury. Mercury. Actually, look what happened. Look at my Mercury shade story. And I was receiving shade, as my weird, I don't know, channeling, or I don't know whatever you want to call it. I was receiving shade, and I just received one of those notifications where I wrote something that I thought I wrote to my colleague and she didn't reply, and I was like, that is just so weird. And apparently, it showed up on another person's feed, like, and that was kind of like, okay, this is Mercury making itself, um, because when you do what I do, there are various people with various interests. Some of these people have interests to make it look like you're isolated. Yeah, I mean, it is just one of the, I guess everybody has their um, office dynamics. and and that's a part of the game. So I guess, I don't know, I mean, I think it's completely useless, but not all people think like me, and yeah, everybody has their own privileges. Some people don't have the privilege of just letting people be. uh, so Mercury has been beginning to show something in the sign of Leo. Another thing is, I saw that there were rituals. There is actually a party in Israel heading by Yair Lapid, and it's a secular party. Like, it was so unexpected, but I saw they were doing literally rituals that are sexually harassing and trying to make people say the words, the letters Po, which is the letters of when you would elect for the party. So I don't know where it's coming from. It doesn't have to come from ALPD itself or the party. It can come from just like people that, I don't know, want to use that party to leverage economic hitman or money or whatnot through it. So as far as I'm concerned, the ALPD could be dealing with that himself. Um, but that was kind of like, that is just so weird because there are about to be elections in Israel. I don't even know if he's running. So I just looked at his chart and I'm like, I don't know, like, it's kind of, yeah. Um, yeah, so that was something that began to make itself visible. And again, you have to be really cautious because in those situations, um, it can be coming from so many places that you just, you know, there's just so many people with so many interests. But they're infiltrating politics towards elections, and this is what we see. Uh, and yeah, they do rituals before elections. It's not it's not a nice truth, but it is true, and that's another thing that became visible, um, and pretty obvious. And again, it's not necessarily like the party leaders. It's something beyond that, which funds them, which goes back to the wealth families. That's just that. So Mercury retrograde will be opposing Pluto, and Pluto still rules politics, even though decentralized, it still rules politics, and decentralized politics is democracy. So we're going to find out the darkness behind what is running our elections, because we used to think about uh, the politics as Capricorn. This is absolutely This is absolutely not true. Um, Democracy began with Pluto in Aquarius, and so the concept of electing one from electing representative to something that is going to have a rather decentralized structure um, of governance with voting is kind of like the Aquarius decentralized Aries individuals and choosing individuals, um, and Gemini is the city or the polis. So that that is, that is what it is. Pluto is exposing the things that are going on in our current democracies, and this is my new prediction for Pluto in Aquarius. Because the Pluto Capricorn kind of exposed the funneling of the money and money frauds, but Pluto in Aquarius rules occult and even astrology. So I'm an astrologer. Like, if this was the way people wanted me to talk about the party, I mean, it was successful eventually, but I was like, behave yourselves. So yeah, um, Mercury is in the sign of visibility, and so the shade period, as usual, many things. Now, this is my unfortunate prediction for Mercury retrograde. It's summertime, and this is the axis of Aquarius and Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun, and this is and the opposite Saturn is about coldness and coolness. Technologies to do with the summer. Our ACs, our ACs, our ACs. So for me, this is like beyond unfortunate, because yeah, this is kind of like. But my prediction is that the technology, every time different technology or the even if it's the same technology, there are different aspects to that. And with you see, with the Mercury, it is affecting anything sun, so visibility, um, leaders or dysfunction in election because it's to do with leaders. There can be technological dysfunctions with the campaigns and election process. The opposition to Pluto, so anything ritualistic, but also the funding behind um, the parties can be exposed. Although Aquarius is kind of like also global structures. You think about the fact that the global government is kind of unelected, and anything that is too centralized in Aquarius gets to be, gets a knock on the door with the people. We the people, you've been served. And so, and then that is the we the people doing the you've been served to anything that is too centralized. Other technologies to do with the summer, of course, anything that keeps the temperature, but also fridges. Not because of food, but because of temperature and because of things that we need in the summer can go off. So if anybody knows any cool ways to cool down that are historical Saturn, that can be the remediation, because it asks us to do technology different. And the other polar opposite of Leo is Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn also rules history. So we have to think about what were they doing around history about this thing. Social medias, because it's about visibility. So social medias can go off. For me, literally the function that records the screen with my voice went off. And the funny thing that in the previous Mercury retrograde, it kind of like was the other way around, where I moved to BitChute, and on BitChute I had to keep the videos in a certain length, and recording the screen allowed me to have longer videos on BitChute. So now it's kind of like my BitChute went down, and I don't have an election for like social media, and in Mercury shade it might not be a good idea to have a new election. But then I'm kind of like, well, either I'm going to do completely black screen or I'm going to record my face. Um, Another thing about visibility. Oh, Mercury rules gender roles, and I saw there was on TikTok a lady that talked about what was it, being treated like a princess, and she said she's a housewife, and when she goes out, she asks for her husband to do everything for her, so she's like a queen and doesn't have to talk to anyone, and that kind of sparked controversy. I think we're going to hear about it more because um, this is about the visibility concerning gender roles. It's about who is the visible partner, who is doing the talking, Mercury. So um, we might see kind of discussions about that and the controversies around that. Um, I just think about if I was supposed to be a housewife, they would find, I think, the walls painted with stars or something, and like um, burning clothes. I really don't know. I'm just not compatible with that. Um, I do need a house, but I'm not a house person always. Um, yeah. Another thing is social engineering around visibility. So um, this is kind of like something I ran into, like going to my cafe, and I was like, there's just attempts to do social engineering around that. Um, and this also has to do with Aries at the later degrees of Leo, but because of the trine. But um, this is about the time where we had kind of like where Jews and dogs are not allowed, that type of thing, and it has to do with the visibility of the person, um, or the profiling, or just something to do with the social engineering. Now, this is something that pertains more to the Pluto opposition, because Pluto in Aquarius is the hidden social engineering, and um, I don't know how much of it is Mercury retrograde, but because it is about visibility and about the way a person is being treated, because Leo is kind of about appreciation. Um, by the way, the place was named Cafe Alma, which is, and yeah, it was just one of the waiters that I've never seen in my life. They behave so rudely that even I did not leave a tip, which is, it's also not the usual thing that I would share on social media. Um, but I don't say it like don't go to the place. I'm just like, hey, pay attention. Like if you go to a certain cafe, this cafe or other cafe, and they begin to act weird or they're social engineering. Um, there was, for example, another cafe that was, um, what was it? Yeah. Um, there was another cafe that was actually a social engineering. Later, I told the owners that I saw social engineering. The reason that they do that, they try to keep the customers away, and I was like a customer that always arrives and drinks her coffee, and sometimes more and more, and so there was kind of like the people got to know me. I got to feel at home in the place, and it was actually a good cafe. So what they began to do is to send infiltration. This time it was an employee. So an employee of the place did that, um, and they began with another cafe, and then people were filming me when I was recording. Later, I came to the owners and I told them, and they said, "Yeah, we saw people like one with one camera, one with the other," and I'm like, I think they are trying to get a hold of the real estate. So the use of camera or the use of Street of people, because if you have like clients that are coming in, they want to create, if you are owning a cafe, if you're owning a business, because Mercury rules businesses and visibility. Uh, and, and what is happening is that they're gonna come to the cafe and they're going to make it uncomfortable for the usual guests that would spend a lot of money drinking coffee, that would sit in the place around in a way that invites customers to be. Because when you have like a person sitting at the cafe um, and people see, oh, people sit here, then this is basically inviting people. Okay, and so for me as a podcast creator, then I would sit at cafes and I would make sure, make sure that I order something and kind of check the place. If the place is looking good and the treatment is well, then, you know, whenever I want to have a meal or something like that, I would choose that cafe. But this is also about people sitting when there are not too many people. Having people sit in the restaurant is actually publicity. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just recording a podcast knowing that it's not a problem because it's just publicity. Okay, people sit in the restaurant, and when you're doing that, like nobody actually even recognizes who you are. So it's not even about who the person. It's not about who is it, the content creator. It's just about, because I'm not a famous person. It's just about people sitting in the place. Um, and what the social engineering would be is around land grab and real estate. They want the real estate of the place, so they want that cafe to close. So this is something I noticed in Cafe Alma in Beersheba. In the mall, it's actually a new cafe, and they're trying to close that because it came. They did it more intelligently. They did it from the waiters. So, and that was immediately after I was treated so well in the place, and it was just so unnerving and annoying. There was something like really undertones of something that is sexual harassment towards client, like that degree. Um, but let's say it was enough for me to not tip. And I was like, this is so fucking weird. But I was like, oh, I ran into the tricks that they do, and they were not after me, they were after the cafe. They wanted to close the cafe because they wanted that piece of real estate. And so anybody that sits there more than once, more than twice, will begin to sense that. I also saw that in another cafe I was always sitting in, and there were other things there. It was a problem. I think there was a problem with the credit, not with the credit company, but with the banking. There was a Mercury retrograde issue about technology. And then it was kind of like they made way more of a big deal of this that is inviting for youngpreneurs. So I was like, I'm not going to sit there again. Like they literally cooperated with the social engineering that was targeting youngpreneurs for making their own business and trying to make it look like the credit is bad, but the credit was good. And indeed, the next day I could pay. It was not a problem. Sometimes technology harms currency. But here I think is the Mercury retrograde with Leo. It's going to make the clients feel like they're not wanted in your business. And then, because Mercury is about the sign of visibility, what it looks like. And then they're going to have the land grab and make the cafe close or the restaurant close. So if you're having that in your own business, then if you have like, you know, if you run into or clients running by or something like that, try to see what is going on. If you have people that used to sit there and used to sit there often and now they don't, try to see what is going on, because it may be that they're after your business and they want your cafe to close so that they can get over the real estate. They do that also with the house flippers, okay? The people that blame the tenants. Like, do you really think that your tenant doesn't want to live in a nice place, keeping the house well, Like, really, do you really think that the tenants don't want their housing to house? But if you believed that, then then off your estate. This is how the house flippers were made. And the owners were blaming the tenants because there was social engineers. There will always be an infiltrated person that is a supposedly landowner. And then they would say, yeah, the tenants are this, and that, and look what they did. And then people had it in their apartments too. So they're like, oh, yes, let's take a company. And I'm like, I had a colleague astrologer, very famous astrologer. He had 13 estates in the US. Um, and the house flippers just, he had to sell everything. And when you have to sell, you know that it's a problem. So it's bureaucracy and so on. So here it's not about the trade so much as it is about trying to make it look like. So Mercury rules scammy things as well, and they want to make it look like. So your clients will feel like, hey, what happened to the place? This used to be a place I like. And they don't, and each and every client, some people are scientists, some people are content creators, some people are uh, um, journalists, some people are startuppers. Each and every one of us have an army of people that will want to take them down. So we would think it's the first thing we would think is like, oh, that somebody tried to do social engineering me when I go to have my cafe. Um, and what we don't get is like, they're not after us. All the clients that are actually sitting at the cafe, whether it's for the air condition or for recording or doing our thing or whatnot, like, we're the income of the cafe. They don't want us out, definitely not if they treated us well in the past. It's the cafe and the real estate they're after, because we are not the real estate. We don't own the place, but we are the real estate because we sit there and we bring clients. And so what they don't want is that cafe or that business to begin to form long-lasting relations with clients that later you would have, oh, that content creator was sitting at the cafe. For example, in Israel, we had Cafe Kasit, which all the who's and who's were sitting in Cafe Kasit, and it was a known thing. It was a public cafe. So if you wanted to rub shoulders with someone, you would try to get yourself a coffee at that place. And so what they don't want is, first of all, for people to have that. And secondly, for your business to begin to be associated with the youngpreneurs or with the artists or with the creators. Because at times of social upheaval, where people would go to is the cafe, because these are the places where they're accepted. They can always have a cup of coffee. They are a part of the tapestry of the place. And so, and this is very likely why I've been treated so well, to be very honest. Okay, because the business owners know that, but they send infiltration, and the fact that they would do it through employees is making a lot of sense, because since COVID, let's just say, waitressing business need to change. Waitressing business need to change, the conditions, the working conditions, and so on. And one of the ways to kind of create another upheaval is for the employees to begin to be recruited to other places. So it's kind of like you can't really blame the employee, because that's very likely the means of income, and they probably have natural hatreds to the people who would still sit at the cafe, where I don't know how they're being treated. I just know that I couldn't stand on my feet for 8 hours because I have a disability, and at the same time I do need the AC and need to work, and there were many times I was questioning, but also when they tried to open a cafe for people that had certain disability to work in, they still had to work on their feet. So it's like it was not inclusive of me, and I still went to sit there to support the place and the people that work there, but that place was burned. And yeah, so you think about the businesses, because Mercury is businesses, and you think about the tapestry of the city, the artists of the city. And every artist would have their own thing. Okay? every artist would have their own thing and their own presence, so to speak. Um, and when they want to create a place, when you create in a business where people are going to sit and have, their coffee, or for some people it's pubs and so on, then there's the tapestry of the place. And so the social engineer tries to interfere with that. I would look into treating business models that are equitable, and make the employees earn better. But the thing is that when such places are open, they're being burned. So it's, I don't know, if you own a business and you want to tell me more about that. Um, yeah, right now I think it's a bit late, but very likely during the Mercury retrograde I will go to have a conversations with the owners, and see if they've been experiencing something like that. Because um, you know there is only so much. Right now we are at the time of abolishing slavery, and if our waiters are kept in positions that are not inclusive, that a person with a physical disability, they can't stand on their feet, could not be working there. Um, and this is a time that those places are outdated. So I'm just thinking with you about these events and about um, colliding agendas, both because like there are people who just want the real estate of the place. There is the fact that employees are unhappy. There is social engineering done to get people to not sit at the place, to close the place down. Um, but if we don't treat our waiters well, and it's just going to be robots like Japan, um, then we're going to have an emotional relationship to a robot. That's the person that makes you coffee, even if it is a computer. So I think it is either in China or in Japan. There is a robot that makes the coffee, and it's very emotional. They also have this very emotional facial expression. Um, it's kind of, and they are so adorable. Like they're like children. They're so adorable, and so if we don't treat well our people, but then the robots are very adorable. But who will have the money to buy coffee? Okay, it's kind of like the things that we need to think about, um, because those places are really the civil places. On another trajectory, I saw, I was entering, going to another coffee. Oh, and this is, yeah, wow, I'm giving so much free business advice. So, yeah, um, because coffees are like my stopways when I do my walking, and they have the freshest of water for the people, which is so important. If you're a coffee and you have fresh water, that are actually good quality water, um, just there, people taste that, they're gonna want to be in your place more. But the way that the place is orchestrated, there are hardly ever places inside, and so it's kind of like there are hardly any places inside, so it's very difficult to sit in the place. And to sit outside is lovely, but it's not good. Like in the summer, it reduces dramatically the number of people um, that can be at the cafe, unless there is like air conditioning or something outside, or ventilation outside. Because fresh air is the best, but it's the city, it's not really fresh air. So um, so that was something I was thinking about. It's like, how many times did I say, "Hey, I want to have a coffee there"? It's like there's no sitting places. No social engineering, nothing. It looks like the team is having a great time, but it's like no sitting places. But I think the fact that people with like physical disability that cannot stand on their feet all the time, um, are not included in the ability to work as a waiter or as a barista, or um, at least where I am, I haven't seen inclusive, and I've asked about this. So because for me it's like scratching my own itch, right? I mean, I drink coffee all the time. If I want just to be around people and enjoy a job, I mean, making people coffee, it looks like a fine job. um, it looks like something you can do while you're having a side hustle, but the fact that you can't, And the fact that it's kind of treated as well, it's kind of like even in places that are inclusive, it's kind of treated as well, there are other jobs that fit for people who cannot stand on their feet. And I think that this is not the right approach, and it is ground for infiltration of the people that can. Because even if it, it, because you think about people with disability, they are more susceptible to be harassed, they are more susceptible to be trafficked simply because they cannot get a job. Oh, speaking about waitressing. Thank you. I was speaking about cafes, and then it was like, oh, the tea is coming. Thank you. Um, so, yeah, and so this is kind of like unnerving, um, and at the same time, it's kind of like for many of us, it's the place to relax. Um, so I don't know. I mean, this waiter could have had a sister or brother that is with disability and have been sexually harassed, and they say, "Oh, what if I treat the clients like that?" I'm against sexually harassing people, but I really don't know what motivated them. And those people are usually tremendous gaslighters, so you can't find out. Um, but that is kind of like, that it can range from, hey, that person is in a weird cult, to, hey, that person may have a person that has a disability and cannot work as a waiter, and he decided to go infiltrate it, and harass customers so that they will leave cafes, and so on, and be vengeful about it. Like, you never know what's running people. um, so in that term, a less susceptible to be infiltrated place is a place with equal equity to the employees, a place that is actually inclusive. No, the fact that you serve food or serve coffee is not grounds to disinclude people with disability that cannot stand on their feet for prolonged hours. It's not, this is the nature of the job. This job could be inclusive. I mean, you are inclusive for the clients, you are inclusive for people to come and sit there. um, you could be inclusive of people to be sitting and making coffee. This is just like common sense. And then, uh, I mean, we have cafes for cats. We had the Cafe Ki'ilu, where people would just sit there and there was no food, there was just plates. And this was kind of like an experience of having a quasi cafe. They would pay to sit there. Okay, they just needed a sitting place, and it was like an experience. Because a lot of people come to the place, and there's like, it's not even about the food sometimes, it's just they need a place to sit and enjoy time. And that was an excuse for them. And they was like, they were paying money to sit and enjoy their time. And that was you know, a place that capitalized on that. And it was quite successful for a while. And then people abandoned that because maybe they wanted their coffee by the pay. So that was in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv. And yeah, those are the things that would make a business less susceptible to land grabs. And yeah, business and inclusivity. But I have to admit, I'm trying to figure out, why is this coming with the Mercury retrograde? Perhaps because it's separating from the square to Aries. It's separating from the square to Aries. And Saturn-Neptune. Saturn-Neptune is also karma on businesses. Oh. Yeah. So it's karma to businesses, and it can have to do with food. So those are the things that come up. And this is so, I mean, if your business is not really socially inclusive, then you're gonna just be treated like business, which means that there's not about, you think about it, if your place is like really socially inclusive, a lot of the wealth families need to have a charity, need to look good. So they would not, like, they would either want to get dividends from the place, or would use this place as, this is the charity or something like that. which makes them look good. Okay, so charities make people look good. It's like, oh, this cafe is so inclusive. You have people on wheelchairs serving, food and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, if we can't, if we don't go around that route of inclusivity, then it's just gonna be treated like a business and have the war on it like businesses. And when it comes to a place where people sit or a place where people spend some time, then it's a sociable place. And then there is the question, okay, what do we the people do about that as clients? um, and this is something that began to pop up during COVID. For me, it's something that I have been really tending to, but there was no cooperation whatsoever. um, and so I just assumed that nobody cares about this goal. Okay, that nobody feels the same as me, or that nobody wants to work at a coffee, or that um, I just assume that nobody cares about this. So, but now it's kind of like, well, now there are implications to that. And I'm like, oh, Karma cares about this? This is so nice. Um, and at the same time, it can be very sad for the people running the business and putting their heart and soul into something um, that is supposed to be a home for many people. So yeah, I guess this is something that we're going to see coming up with the Mercury retrograde, and I think it's the beginning of the dogs and Jews type of thing, because it's the who enters the business by the visibility, and and we're gonna see some controversies, yes, around that. Again, labor conditions win with Gemini, and Saturn is going to conjoin Uranus in Gemini. The people that have been supporting slavery, the labor concentration camps in Taurus in the Second World War, we had Mars, Saturn, Uranus in Taurus. So think about the fact that the woman could not work and make an income in a business, and there was the money laundering, because this was about the exchange and the debt and the collectors. But Gemini, it was about labor conditions. I mean, the labor camps, Hitler said, I could not be an officer. That's how they recruited him. He could not just do a regular job. And then he was like, okay, then I will promise jobs to people and I will get elected. And then I would put them in concentration camps, call them Jews, whether they are or not Jews. And that was kind of like his nemesis. It was not compatible for a regular job. What can I say? I mean, an inclusive place could have gotten a hold over Hitler, and but he was so recruitable in that sense. Needed to feel belonging, had warrior capacity, had creative abilities. Perhaps wasn't like the genius that brings the next spirit of the times, but also not, and he could not be an officer. That's it, that's it. And with Gemini, the Saturn-Uranus conjunction, I think we're going to have Saturn-Uranus conjunction, and this can be, it can be about kind of working camps to the people that supported excluding people from the working sector. And if we, and that is, it's going to feel like all the people that don't understand labor rights and don't apply them are going to have concentration camp karma, which is different to the social revolution we had with just Uranus and Gemini. Because now Saturn, it's going to take 3 years. It's going to be at the end of Gemini. I think it's going to be with Uranus. I need to check that. I think it's going to be where Uranus is for NATO chart, and to a lesser degree for Israel chart. And I'm situated in Israel. Oh, so exciting. All the people that didn't let people have a job that they can actually make a living and push them to be trafficked, to be treated like ritually abused and whatnot, they're gonna have karma. And so, like Israel, then put it there somewhere. Yeah, thank you. What's okay? תודה רבה. Then this is where all those invisible people are just, the world is going to be treated like them. Either that, or people will have labor rights and will have like happy revolution and actual workplaces. Because for many of us, we couldn't start our sidekick or get funding for studies or do something with a life. By the time a business grows, you have to put so much into that, and it takes time and resources. And so the fact that we weren't included in society, is having a timestamp. Like there is a limit to how disincluded we can feel and how much implication this has on our lives, risk of being trafficked, and just because we can't get along with the usual order that was slavery based. So it's kind of like you're silent about it, you're silent about it, you're silent about it, you're silent about it, and you try to do your thing anyway, and then that is confiscated, and everything is confiscated. So at first I was like treating that as, okay, what if that just means I just need a bigger job, I need to move forward and kind of like to fail forward, and I was being very entrepreneurial and so on. And then I went to studies and like really tried to do my best with that, but in essence the entire working sector is not inclusive of me. And it's good that my disability is not visible. I mean, not all disabilities are visible, but it is about not being able to stand on my feet, and it's kind of visible. It's just that nobody cares for feet health, because feet are holistically connected to being interconnected with something that is more than yourself. And then people will call us, of course, selfish when we have a disability, and don't let us heal that. And the medicines, the conventional thing to heal that still cramps our feet in positions that are not natural to our feet, and then everybody complains. But this is basically our consciousness and our psyche. It's kind of like nobody believed I have a problem with my feet. Nobody believed that. Like if you look at the feet, actually, when I was, there was one doctor who says you won't be able to stand on your feet. This is not, look at this. You're not compatible with. But why did it take so many doctors to say that? And it wasn't helpful, because this was one opinion. This was one medical opinion. One saint in a giant ocean of crooks. Some of them weren't meaning to be crooks. They're just like, that slip. That was the invisible thing, and that's like, okay. Then a person just feels like they're not a part of society. They're constantly being blamed for that. Nobody even recognizes their disability. Nobody adjusts the workplace so that they can actually work. And then they're being, targeted, humiliated, oppressed. What do you expect there to happen to business? What do you expect that you're gonna get? So the Mercury retrograde is just a part of something that is bigger, and I think that now the collective is having jobs karma. But this is interesting to be alive at this time, because we were marketed that the advancement of technology in the past Uranus retrograde, in the past Uranus ingress to Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, but Uranus is not yet. It's close to be ruled by Mercury. It's still ruled by Venus. But we were educated to believe that there was an industrial revolution, and then people protested for the working rights, and then they had more leisure time. There were industries around that, and nobody, and with the modernity, a lot of people lost their jobs. And again, I don't know what was it like then, because then you could do, you had your own shop and you would, I don't know, fix watches, or here there's a lady that sells clothes, so she can sit in her own store. But is there any clothes store where a person can sit today? No, you're expected to work like a machine. And perhaps that was then, but right now I think it's kind of like the implications of back then, which means that most of society worked in inhumane conditions and never even pleaded for a change. And so that, and even when we wanted to do like something more meaningful with ourselves, they asked us to do that in the same conditions. This is why I didn't find me in the high-tech industry. Israel is a tech booming industry, but they ask for us to be in such constricting conditions in the high-tech that it's like it's still slavery. People used to call it a cage made of gold. And I was like, they're literally, it's like ruining pizza. It's like ruining pizza. Like, there's so much things that people could contribute had only the living space and the working space have been compatible with actual creativity. But then we'll be sovereigns. And so the disability for many people, I don't know if there are people with disabilities or invisible disabilities or visible. I remember when I saw a lady that was, sometimes she needed a wheelchair and sometimes she could walk. And so that was so validating for me, because I don't need a wheelchair, but the fact that my physical disability is invisible made it so that the only way to be accepted into society is for people to see me as a cuckoo, which was at the time was like, okay, maybe I am a cuckoo. and only when you have, I mean, of course, if your disability is not believed, then you have a nervous breakdown. It makes sense. Like you cannot get a job, everybody mistreats you, everybody thinks you're lying, nobody believes you, and you can't really get along in society, so you're seen as the problem. And then you think like, okay, it's kind of like, well, all of you are slaves. And it's like, no, we're not, we're having a nice time. And I was like, okay, I can't stand on my feet like for this many hours. I can't do those jobs. I can't speak with people and lie to them on the phone. Okay? And then you go to places and there's corruption in the workplaces. So it's kind of like either, so it's kind of like, hey, is something wrong with me? And it was like, well, I do have a disability in my feet that nobody tends to. So that's kind of like being in a sociopathic environment your entire life. And only when you say, well, I guess I'm the crazy one, people are like, oh my god, yeah, it's so, some people have invisible disabilities. Tell me about it. So that is something that I don't know to delineate what is doing that, but I think it's kind of like the upcoming Uranus Gemini, because this is about labor rights. And so a lot of people are going to have the AI as a karma to that. Okay? A lot of people are going to have the AI as a karma to that. And then there are like, it's it's kind of like, if you are excluding people from being able to make a sovereign income, then that is very likely to mean that you're building your own concentration camps. And and we tried our entire life to, I'm not saying to warn you, but it's like, hey, what if life could be different? I mean, what if we could actually fit into society? And I think there are going to be a couple of things that are related to that, and people coming from many places and many venues, because we were kind of like the black sheep of society in many ways. And then it was like, oh, you have so much potential, but the working sectors is not compatible. And when you try to create an infrastructure that is actually compatible, like astrology, people are like, oh my god, astrology, da, 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 da. I was like, that is a non-dynamic linear system that is actually predictive and can assist me to comprise my own lifestyle. And I'm like, hey, I can help and do that with others. Like, oh no, you need a certification, you need to study in this school, you need to study in that school. And like, you mean I need to rape children? You need to. That's what you mean, because that's all the certifications are like that. That's what you mean, because I don't rape children, because I don't run Peter rings. That's what you mean. Okay, so you're building your own concentration camps, and I'm fine with that.